Question 1. Americans concluded the Civil War by amending the Constitution rather than tearing it up and starting over, but this achievement entailed a violent revolution. So in all such questions, we try and understand the context of the sentence and think of words that can replace the word in the blank, and then go to the options to find the best replacement for such a word. So here, the author is talking about the Civil War, which led to the end of slavery in the United States. And the author is saying that Americans concluded the Civil War by amending the Constitution rather than tearing it up and starting over. So the Constitution was not entirely discarded, it was amended, it was changed. So that is something that is presented as a positive, that they did not completely tear up the Constitution, rather they amended it. But then the author says this achievement entailed a violent revolution. So even though Americans did not completely discard the Constitution, that process was not painless. It did entail a violent revolution. So the best replacement for the word entail, what can we think of? It involved a violent revolution. It was marked by a violent revolution. So I'm looking at words like involved, marked by, right? Now I can come to the options and look for the best replacement. So involved is one of the options. So I can definitely choose option B, that this achievement involved a violent revolution. Now, option A is not correct because cause would mean that the achievement caused the revolution, which doesn't make sense because the achievement, that is the amending of the Constitution, came after the violence of the Civil War. So this option misrepresents the chronology of the Civil War. So it's not option A. To trigger is to cause something to happen or to cause something to start. For example, this accident will finally trigger some changes in traffic rules, right? So here again, we have a sense of chronology that is inappropriate because the achievement could not have triggered a violent revolution. The achievement came after the revolution. So it's not option C. And precede is to come before. So that again does not fit the chronology. So the best answer for this is option B. Question 2. In drafting the political framework for a newly independent nation, the framers of the Indian Constitution confronted a series of complex social and ethical questions. So here we are talking about the framers of the Indian Constitution who met as part of the Constituent Assembly to draft a new political framework for India, which had achieved its independence in 1947. And in doing so, the framers of the Indian Constitution confronted a series of complex social and ethical questions, right? So they were faced with, right? They were faced with these complex questions, right? So I need to look for something that can convey the idea of dealing with complex questions, right? Now, option A, to combat, is used in the sense of actually combating, like in war, right? For example, the enemy units are engaged in combat near the border. So that would not make sense in the context of dealing with serious questions. So I don't like A. Now, discuss is not a bad answer because they did discuss those questions, but discuss does not have the sense of dealing with something, right? I could discuss something and leave it at that, while the sentence seems to indicate that they confronted, which is to say that they made an effort to answer those questions, made an effort to at least try to solve these problems, right? So discuss is a somewhat incomplete answer. I need something stronger. So I don't like B, but I'll come back to this. Tackled. Tackled is better than discussed because to tackle something is to deal with a problem or an issue, right? So the sense of tension inherent in the word confronted is captured by tackled better than by discussed, right? So I definitely like C better than B. And to approach can be used in the context of approaching a problem, right? But I don't think it has the same sense of being in the thick of trying to deal with it, right? To approach a problem is to kind of start to just begin to understand it, right? For example, I see that there is a problem, but I'm not sure how to approach it, right? So approach has the sense of trying to solve something by getting the contours of the problem, just the initial stage, right? While I need a word that is stronger, right? I need a word that means that these framers were trying to deal very seriously with these ethical questions. They were in the midst of solving and trying to figure out these ethical questions. So again, I wouldn't choose approached when I have tackled, which is a stronger word. So my answer is option C. Question 3. Conventional economic wisdom says inflation, which has been rising all year, is bad for growth and technology stocks. So far, many small investors don't care. So here I'm speaking about two things which seem to be in contradiction. Economic wisdom says that inflation, which is the rise in prices, is bad for growth and tech stocks, right? So if prices rise, then people are wary of purchasing. And so overall growth momentum can suffer, and technology stocks can also suffer as a result of that. But then the second statement says small investors don't seem to care, which indicates that despite the rise in prices, investors are buying these stocks and investors are in the market to purchase, right? Now, the way the sentence is written, it seems that investors are not following what conventional economic wisdom tells us, right? So the best word for conventional here would be accepted, something that is believed to be true by a lot of people, right? So I'm looking for a word that means accepted economic wisdom, something that is widely known and widely agreed upon, right? Now, option A, ordinary. Am I saying ordinary economic wisdom? No. I'm not saying that this wisdom is ordinary. It's not special. Ordinary is used in the context of something not being special, not being different. So the idea of ordinary doesn't fit the idea of something that is widely accepted. So it's not A. Normal, again, is used in contrast to abnormal. That is to say, something which is routine, something which is usual, right? For example, the normal temperature of a place or the normal weather conditions. So normal is something that is the norm. So I don't know if I want to use that for wisdom, because wisdom is an abstract concept, right? And I would be a little cautious of calling one kind of wisdom normal and another kind abnormal, right? Because wisdom is very context specific. So I'm not sure I like normal. So I'll come back to this. Okay, traditional makes sense in this context because I'm saying traditional economic wisdom, which is wisdom that is commonly accepted, says that inflation is bad for growth, right? So this is the traditional view, but then this view is not reflected in how small investors are behaving currently, right? So traditional in the sense of something which is well known can make sense here. So definitely I would prefer traditional to normal. So I'm canceling B. And typical, how is typical used? Typical is similar to normal in the sense that his rebelliousness is typical of his age, right? Which is to say that you expect him to be rebellious because that's the norm. That's something expected from people of his age. So again, I'm not sure I want to use the word typical with wisdom, right? Because wisdom being an abstract concept would not be classified as typical or atypical, right? So if I'm trying to say that something is widely accepted, a word like traditional would be the best fit. So the right answer for this is option C. Question 4. Many Americans are leaving jobs for better working conditions and pay amid a historically fast economic recovery, but the wave of resignations hasn't been uniform across the country. So here I'm speaking of the Great Resignation, which is something that is much in discussion right now. How people, especially in the West, are leaving their jobs in huge numbers to look for better working conditions, since after COVID, there has been a giant economic recovery. So people are looking for new opportunities. But the wave of resignations hasn't been uniform across the country. So there's definitely a rise in the number of resignations, but that rise is not uniform across the United States, right? So I'm looking for a word that indicates rise, that indicates increase. So option A, oscillation in. Now, oscillation would not make sense because to oscillate is to go between 2 points, right? So for example, if I was saying that there is an oscillation in resignations, first of all, I'm not sure I want to use oscillation with resignations because that's not something you come across often. But let's say that we do go with this and we figure out a way to use it, then it would probably mean that it goes up and down and then up again and down again, right? So there is a sense of motion which is not constant in one direction, right? It goes up and down. So that's not what I'm saying, because wave here would mean that there is this sudden increase in resignations. That's what the context establishes. So it's not A. Okay, outbreak is not suitable for resignations, right? Outbreak can be used for a disease. For example, the outbreak of cholera is endemic to this region, right? So I wouldn't want to use that with resignations. It's a negative word. It's used in a negative connotation. Surge in is a good answer. A surge in something is a rise in something. So when I talk about the wave of resignations, I'm saying that there has been a surge, there has been an increase in resignations, but that's not uniform. So I like option C. And presence of is not correct because I'm not saying that there is a presence of resignations, right? Presence is used in the context of something being there, right? For example, the presence of so many people discomforted her, which is to say that she was not comfortable by the presence of so many. But here I'm talking about an increase. I'm talking about a rise, a surge, right? So it doesn't make sense to talk about the presence of resignations. So the best answer is option C. Question 5. Antibody tests are one tool some people are deploying to help them decide which precautions to take to protect themselves from and curb the spread of COVID-19. So here I'm talking about antibody tests. So you know that one way to make sure that you will not get COVID is to confirm the presence of antibodies against the virus in your body. So some people, either because they have had COVID or because they are vaccinated, are going in for these antibody tests to make sure that they do in fact have protection against the virus. So this is one way, this is one tool some people are deploying to protect them from the virus. So what is a good replacement for deploying? Can I say that this is one tool that they are utilizing? This is one tool that they are using to protect themselves, right? So I'm looking for words like that. And in fact, using is right here, the first option. So antibody tests are one tool people are using to help them decide which precautions to take. So I definitely like this. Now, positioning is not used in the context of deploying or utilizing a tool, right? Positioning, for example, can be used to say the army has been positioned near the border, right? So that is related to the position, the actual physical place where something is. So it doesn't make sense in the context of deploying. Rendering, to render is to cause something to happen. For example, new technology has rendered CDs obsolete. So again, that doesn't fit the context of utilizing a tool. So it's not C. And to amass is to gather, right? For example, the police have amassed huge quantities of evidence as they prepare their case. So again, that sense of gather doesn't fit the context. So the best answer is option A.